All right, so we've done SOHCAHTOA and Pythagoras, but those only work on right angle triangles. Any triangle, including right angle triangles, any triangle can be solved using sine law or cosine law. So today let's focus on our sine law. So when we draw a triangle, any triangle, there's my beautiful triangle, each of the corners, so each vertex gets a capital letter, and then across from that capital letter, I get a little letter to match. So across from big A is little a, across from big B is little b, and across from big C is little c. And the sine law is just a ratio, so it's a set of fractions. Sine, angle, over, side. Notice how they match. Equals sine, angle, over side, equals sine, angle, over side. Now you only need 2 of those fractions at a time to solve, but that's all the sine law is. Okay, so let's use this and let's solve a triangle. So let's give you a triangle that looks like, I'm just going to flip it just for fun, and I'm going to call this A, B, C, and I'm going to label this side as 55 degrees. This one over here is going to be 70 degrees. And we need one more piece of information. So let's say that this side length is 9.2 centimeters, and I want to solve for this side length. Okay. So first off, let's finish our labeling. So if this is big A, across the triangle is little a. If this is big B, across the triangle is little b. And if this is big C, across the triangle is little c. So when we go to set up our ratio, we're going to do that with our corresponding pieces. So notice how I have absolutely nothing for A and A, so I'm just going to totally ignore it. Okay? I do have B and B, so let's see, sine B over B. So I have stuff for that, so I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to put it in underneath. Sine 55 over X, okay? And then that has to equal another fraction. So my other fraction is going to come from the last pair of sides. So this combination here. So sine C over C. So that tells me sine angle, which is 70, over this side length, which is 9.2. So as long as I have number, 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 and only one letter, we're good. We can solve. So this is where our wonderful cross multiplying comes into play. So you take the 2 numbers that are diagonal from each other. That's what we're timesing. And we're going to divide by the one that's diagonal from the x. So what does that look like? That looks like x equals the diagonal ones. So 9.2 times sine 55. All divided by sine 70. So make sure you're careful when you type this into your calculators. So I've got a fairly decent calculator here, so it can handle it. 9.2 times sine 55 divided by sine 70, and I get 8. I get x equals 8 centimeters. So that's all we have to do. You find your diagonal pieces, you set them up, cross multiply, so again another diagonal, calculator, and we're done. Okay, now I've got another example, so example 2. So here I have a nice big straight line, and then I turned it into, use that as part of my triangle. I've got 2 side lengths here, and I have the angle on the outside, so we're going to have to bring back some of our angle knowledge. Okay, so let's figure this out. Remember that the angles in a line add up to 180, right? So that means I can figure this angle out no problem. So I know 180 is 120 plus, we'll just call that angle P to keep it simple. So if I subtract 120 from both sides, well, that means 60 degrees is this angle in here. Good, so now I know my angle. That's very important. Now that I know that angle, I can start using my sine law. So let's see. These guys are going to give me one of my fractions. So this is P, that makes that P. I can use whatever letter I want. as long as they match in that diagonal, okay? So that means I'm looking at sine of angle 60 over a side length of 98 equals, let's see, what else do we know? I know that I'm looking for angle R, and that matches up here. So now I can do another fraction using the R's. So sine of angle R over side length R. So that means sine of this unknown angle over the side length 112. Well, I can solve now. I have 1, 2, 3 numbers and only one letter, so I can solve. So let's do our cross multiplying. So this is my unknown, so that means I want these guys together. So I'm going to multiply those. So I've got sine R equals 112 times sine 60, all divided by the 98. Throw all that in your calculator and you're going to get some number. Okay, it's going to look like a great big giant decimal. Times sine 60 divided by 98 equals, I get 0.9897 and a bunch more decimals. Okay, so to rearrange, remember we need to find the angle. So that means we need that sine inverse of all of this. So to get that, remember it's our second function. Hit the sine button so I get that sine minus 1 shows up. And then I can stick in that ants. So my calculator's stored the answer I just had. And then it gives it to me. And I don't even have to type in that great big long decimal. That would round to 81.8 degrees. So that's pretty good. And then to get the third angle, which the question's asking me for as well, to get my last angle, don't forget that all the angles in a triangle add to 180. So I know angles in a triangle add to 180 degrees. So that means 60 plus 81.8 plus angle Q all have to add up to 180. So let's see, 60 plus 81.8 is 141.8 plus Q is 180. Bring that to the other side, so we're going to subtract that from both sides. And what does Q equal? Minus 180, 38.2. And there you have it. Okay, so for our last example, let's do a word problem. So what we have is we have a leaning wall, okay? We have a board to support it. We have the ground. We want to figure out this angle, that angle, and the distance away on the ground. So I just kind of short formed it. It's just the one out of your textbook. Okay? So let's solve it. What do we know? I know I have a triangle, and I can give it any letters I want. So let's say that's A, which means this is little a. Let's call this B, which makes this little b. Let's make that C, which makes this little c. Okay? I have one angle. I have a side length. I'm looking for an angle. I'm looking for another side length. So how are we going to solve? Okay, so I'm missing one number. This is supposed to be 1.4 meters long. Okay, so now that I have this side length and that angle, oh, well, that can make a fraction for us. And I have this angle and this side length, so that can make a fraction for us. So let's set it up. So I've got A's, so sine A over A equals sine B over B. Pop in what we know. So I've got sine of 80 over 2 equals sine of the angle I don't know over 1.4. Well, we're good. We know enough. We can cross multiply, right? So those are the ones that have both numbers. So I'm going to multiply those together. So I've got sine angle is 1.4 times sine 80, all divided by 2. Pop that into your calculator, and you're going to get some big kind of decimal. 1.4 times sine 80 divided by 2 equals, so you've got sine angle is 0.689. Remember to bring sine to the other side. We have to use our shift button because we need that inverse. Sine inverse of 0.689. So to do that, remember it's second function, sine, to get that sine minus 1. I put in my ants key, because that's my answer from before, and there you go. Oops, equals 43.6. Perfect. Okay. So if I know that angle and I know the other angle, well, the third angle, I just have to subtract everything from 180 and we got it. So let's do it. So to get angle C, so angle C is just 180 minus the 80 I already know, minus the 43.6 I just solved for. So let's see. If I did that right, that gives me 56.4 degrees. So that's the angle the board makes with the wall. This was the angle it made with the ground. So now I know that number, so let's pop that up here, 56.4, because now that I know that, I can now solve for my left. I can now solve for my left side length. So I'm going to use the fraction that I was given everything from the start just to make my life easy. Just in case I made a mistake, this way I don't make it worse, right? Right. So I know sine A over A gave me 80. So I've got sine 80 over A, which was 2, equals sine C over C. So I just solved for the angle C, which is 56.4, divided by little c, which is the length on the ground that we're trying to solve for. Okay, so let's finish that up. Cross multiply here, so the two numbers that are diagonal from each other, we're going to multiply. So that c equals 2 times sine 56.4 divided by sine 80. Throw all that in your calculator, and what do you get? Let's see, 2 times sine 56.4 divided by sine 80 is 1.69. So that rounds to 1.7. And we are dealing with meters. And there you have it, folks.